Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Just put the mic all the way up on the new interface. There we go. Hello. Thanks for joining me today. Slightly different stream today. I put this on at the last minute because I received an email from Introversion Software, who you may know from Prison Architect. And they've basically been developing something in secret. And they've just done a press release to tell people about it, which is cool. So yeah, if you never played Prison Architect, it was kind of a top-down building and management game about running a prison. As an oldie, the thing it reminded me most of was something like Dungeon Keeper, because what is a prison if not a dungeon? There we go. Mike's just peeking a little bit, turn that down. So although it's kind of, about running a public service, you'd think it would be like something like Theme Hospital, but it always felt a bit like one of those Dungeon Keeper games to me. Yeah, this was a good game by my standards. I thought it was interesting. Obviously, a bit of a dodgy theme that people are going to have a problem with to some degree, but I thought it was a good game at the time. It was actually one of the first games that I wrote any kind of design criticism of, because it was in early access for so long, and for a very long time, it only really existed as a sandbox mode, and there wasn't like a proper kind of campaign tutorial that gradually introduced things. And it took a very long time for them to add that. But obviously it didn't hurt them. Ended up being a very popular game. And yeah, they've just announced Arise Dark Lord, which is like a dark fantasy game they've been working on where you play as some kind of Sauron, some kind of necromancer. And kind of excited to check this out. So there is a link in the description if you want to play it yourself to the itch prototype. And basically what they've done is they set up a studio with under a false name, Subversion Studios. Worked on this for a while. People have been playtesting it for a while, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this only just went live, but yeah, they've been working on it under a kind of fake name. And then did a press release a couple of days ago about the prototype. So it's a really cool thing for the channel to get that email as well, because I receive so many spammy emails every day from people sending me games that are out that I'm not going to play because we play work in progress games. And, maybe one or two games every month I do have time to play, and the desire to play on a stream that is a kind of released game. That's going to come from my personal backlog of like indie games that people are talking about that I'm personally interested in. So having this come through is a really nice alignment because it's the type of game I am interested in, and they've sent it before it's actually been commercially released. So that's all cool. So I'm gonna run it. We're gonna see what it is. An action strategy hybrid RTS blending tower defense base building and direct control of your Dark Lord avatar. Cool. Check, 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 check. Sorry, I'm still working out the new audio interface over here, so if I get a bit peaky at times, that's why. Just... Okay. Prologue, I guess. Yeah, I saw this posted in the Godot subreddit. Alright, Dark Lord. This isn't what the character looked like in the thing I saw. Maybe they're gonna do a give us all the power and then take it away thing. The classic. Zooming around. Here we go. I'm on a map. It's weirdly like the game that I was pitching in my GDD video that I did like 2 years ago. Yeah, Godot's taken over the GMTK Game Jam. Okay, we can zoom right out. We can zoom right in. And we've got some... We're picking up mana on the map. This is so like the game that I was pitching in that video. It's so funny. A dark herald shall emerge, a lord of death and shadow. And his will shall be the breaking of the world. Okay, cool. Relic found, the dark banner. The power to rally your army to follow you in battle. No other insignia has ever instilled such fear in the hearts of so many. Okay, so rally your orcs. These are orcs, are they? We press R. I mean, this is about as close to being a Sauron simulator as possible. So we right click and hold, and they sort of head to that point, and then we let go. Tell you what, holding right click feels odd. Oh no, we can just set the banner and then they go towards it. I see. We don't have to hold it. Zooming in. We can also rally the... We can press R and C to rally them or send them away. And they kind of follow us around. This is basically what if Sauron wasn't a scaredy cat who stayed in his tower and decided, you know, did some of his own dirty work. Attack the tower first, guys. Come on. So I've lost a health. The game is telling me, hey, don't get right in the mix there. You know, stay back and let stuff fight for you. I'm going to be honest, I think the art isn't quite doing it for me right now. I know what they're going for. I think it needs to be a little bit more... I don't know, I don't like these block shadows on the mountains. I would like these to look more like a Tolkien drawing, you know, with the cross-hatching and stuff. Introversion is kind of famously not a, like, super fancy art-driven studio, from what I remember of Prison Architect, and I think... It's the same for like games like RimWorld, these kind of simulation games where they actually benefit from the art being a little bit kind of simple and suggestive. But I think I would be happier with something that really looked like the kind of hand-drawn thing it was trying to emulate rather than like a pixel art facsimile of that thing. Is this a new relic? We're going to get a new relic, I think. The Summoning Rod. The power to summon entire legions of orcs from the underworld. The Summoning Rod is the key that opens a portal to the Dark Realm. Okay. I can summon orcs by clicking and holding. That's cool. I can build my own orcs. I like that it is going kind of closer to the Tolkien lore about orcs being something that someone makes. Although I've been listening to Shelf by Genre do their Tolkien year, and the Lord of the Rings orc lore seems to kind of change as it goes through the books. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But I think even just like this character, it would have been obvious for it to be a necromancer raising skeletons, and they've already done something that uses a bunch of tropes and like puts them together in a slightly non-standard way, which is kind of cool. You have enough mana to summon more orcs. We can just click there and send some orcs over. That's a portal now. Not a very cool looking portal, let's face it. But this is the prototype, remember, so this is all kind of just them trying to get the vibes across. So that's my Summon Orcs ability that's on cooldown. I don't have enough mana. So I've got these big blocks of mana that appear on the map for us to pick up. Feels like we're trying to find some sort of middle ground here between a traditional RTS and Vampire Survivors. And I like it. I find it an interesting space. The visual design feels a bit wonky to me. I think it's hard to see what's important on the screen. You know, we've got lots of hard black outlines on things that aren't important, and then these guys feel more like illustrations of real people, whereas the orcs feel more like they're supposed to be like something you'd see on an old scroll or something. I don't know, there's something going on there that doesn't quite work for me right now, but the core of how this gameplay works does appeal to me. Send them over there. I'm going to put the banner right in the middle of where everyone is, so they'll go in and spread out. And then I can start summoning more orcs. I'm going to summon some... Can I do some over here? Not sure how the limitation on how far away you can summon works. There's not really much indication around how that works, so... Right, come back, come back, come back. Come back. We're going to wait here until that portal spat out as many orcs as it's got, and then we'll re-rally them. Okay, take out the archers first. Around here. I'm thinking of something like Bad North, which is like a mini RTS that we covered on the podcast a couple of months ago. Mini RTS from a few years ago. What you want is for your characters and the enemies to have some interesting little quirks, learnable quirks of their AI, you know? So I'm not sure how the trees and the archers interacted there. But I think what would have been cool is basically if the archers weren't aware of us when we came through or around the trees and they couldn't shoot through the trees. I think the archers just kind of carried on. You know, maybe they're respecting the trees as a thing that blocks their individual arrows, but it doesn't seem to block their line of sight of us, and they sort of still behave like they know that we're there. And I think those are the sorts of areas where if there's some specific little quirks of how the AI behaves in those instances, then you end up with something interesting to learn. And Bad North is full of that stuff. Walk into the light to leave this realm. I will. I will leave this realm. Interesting. This looks very swish. Bit slow to load, but again, it's because we're on a web build. There isn't a downloadable version of this at the moment. So, okay, we've got... This is our relic collection so far around here. I feel like we're taking some of the ideas from Cult of the Lamb and putting them in a slightly kind of edgier, less cute setting, but it's like that fundamentally similar thing of, okay, we're going to take a bunch of stuff that should be in a management game where the player is kind of disembodied and just looking down from above, and we're going to put it in a kind of character-driven thing where you walk around. So we did the Forbidden Valley. We're going to go to the Crypt of the Necromancer next. Not to be confused with the Crypt of the Necrodancer. Right, lads. Meat is back on the menu, as they say. Under hallowed ruins in distant lands lay powerful relics from a forgotten time. Okay. I love powerful relics from a forgotten time. Right, let's try my theory. So yeah, if we go on the other side of the forest, it looks like they can still attack us, but it's hard to tell because I just burst through the trees kind of prematurely. Come on, lads. Right, if we go here, can we do a sneaky through the trees? So yeah, a little UX thing. When I use my Summon Orc spell and I create that portal, there's some sort of limitation on how far I can cast it, and maybe I need line of sight. But there's nothing in the game to really communicate what the error is when I can't cast it. So I end up just kind of trial and error clicking the portal around, and it doesn't really doesn't feel good because it's not really teaching me where I can do the portal or not. And that means that every time I'm just going to be kind of guessing and maybe putting it closer than I should. I feel like the forests at the moment, they're kind of decorative. Like, they don't fully block you moving. You can move through them. But they don't seem to be very kind of tactically useful either. And I think maybe it would be better if they were like solid blocks. Solid, like, wedges of trees. Or it was easier for your orcs to move through them, and maybe they, you know, just... These could have like, I think if you wanted these to work in the way I'd expect from looking at them, it would be cool if they had quite a small physical blocker. So I could, if my orcs are here and I click like that, at least some of them will try and straight line path through the trees and they'll kind of weave through them. But then the actual trees, if they had a larger line of sight blocker that was bigger, then any kind of archers that are on the other side of the forest or whatever won't see your guys until they just come out. And I think that could be a really cool dynamic, because then you're going to feel sneaky and evil, right? If we can use the trees to be sneaky and evil, then it's going to turn the micro layer of the combat into something that is kind of has more tactical variety, but also fits the theme of the game. Let's go and murder everyone in Barrowtown. See. Ah, okay, so so you can see the icon does change depending on... That means I can do a portal, and that means I can't. So the closest I can do a portal is there. It's the Oblivion Gate right outside of Bruma. We'll wait for these to spawn. See, I keep looking at the world around my characters and wanting to find cool ways to sneak up on the enemy, and they're not quite paying off. I imagine we're going to get some more spells as the game advances, but I really want the ordering of the orcs to have a little bit more potential for different approaches and... Insight. What's that? We've got an insight down there. Don't know what it means. Right, we're going to blow up Bleakwater and then we'll go back to the crypt. There's some proper, like, paladins up there. We've got a book. The power to improve and upgrade your spells over time and to learn even more powerful spells in the future. The prophecy written into this book predicts a coming catastrophe and arrival of the Dark Lord. The Book of Apocrypha. Insight is gathered from the ruins of human towns. Okay, so we gather insight. That's our XP for making our spells better. And then we're going to have some sort of like... long-term skill tree type thing with our spells. So we've got summon orcs, raise dead, construction. They can start to build quarries and iron mines. Okay, cool. It's going to take us a little while to get to the base building part of the RTS, but we can see it's there. And that's why it's a good point to introduce this book, because this is sort of like showcasing what the game is going to build up to. Right? You don't want to hit people with this stuff too quickly, because you can overwhelm them. But this is quite a nice way of gradually introducing some of the broader scope of the game. Okay. How do we get out of this? I feel like I'm stuck on this menu now. Oh, it's wanting me to do stuff here. It's just showing... The tutorials all have this little manual bit you have to do on the scroll, which is quite a cool idea. I've got the insight. I go on the spell book. I can upgrade more orcs. More orcs, my liege. And I'm going to upgrade the zombie spell as well. Now we don't have any insight left, so hopefully the tutorial will let us exit that bit now. Yeah, I think if you kind of thought a little bit more about how the trees work with combat and how things path and how line of sight works. We haven't had zombies yet, but I think the way that zombies and orcs behave differently could play in a lot there as well, because like maybe orcs sneak through the trees and zombies don't know how to do that or something like that. You could have like a real sense of like orthogonally different units, and we're not there yet, so we don't know. Oh, we're doing a dungeon raid now. Now this to me starts to justify why we've got these like pixel art enemies and everything, and rather than something that looks a little bit more like a hand-drawn scratchy style. This is the type of game where I would love to just, like, have a month of going sicko on a bunch of the art, because I think there's a lot of need, there's a need for a lot more coherence in the overall kind of art direction of this, and, like, the mixing of styles and everything, but I can see what they're going for, and it's this, like, this is very Tolkien, right? Like, this is very much kind of Sauron simulator. But what it's not is the kind of post-Tolkien generic fantasy that we get in a lot of video games. It's doing this kind of darker, like, sort of 70s, 80s sword and sorcery kind of stuff. And if you go back and you do things like watch the original Conan the Barbarian movie, the Arnie one, it's like a different set of tropes, and it's before the high fantasy that we get in a lot of video games now was really encoded. They're doing some interesting stuff here. It's orcs and undead, but I don't know, everything feels a little bit... it's old and retro in a way that makes it feel fresh for modern video games. The power over death itself in one of the most evil artifacts ever created. With this ring, you can raise the dead to fight beside you. Okay. So I would be using the left click to raise the dead, because that's the spell button. Right, and this helps to justify why we've got the pixel art human characters like that now as well, because we need to redraw each of them in a zombie style, so that there's like a tiered set of undead where, you know, certain things can be stronger than others and everything, and have ranged versus melee. Okay, cool. So is there a quick button to change spells? Yeah, 1 and 2, cool. Let's raise some of these guys. And now what I'm interested in, both from a game design perspective and just as like a fan, just a regular old garden variety gamer, is how are the undead going to feel different from the orcs? Because I really do feel like you can just do a couple of things in your game's character AI to make certain characters feel more intelligent than others, or to feel more kind of like they're trying to preserve their own life. And like, I don't know what that would be in this case, but say you have something that the characters do to preserve their own life. Having that trait on the orcs and then not having it on the undead would already go quite a far way to making them feel different from each other, and then possibly having some slightly different tactical approaches you need to use with them. But that's one of the first, like, I've just been programming the mobs in my game, and one of the first things I've been focusing on really is like, what are things that are like generic behaviors that all mobs will have, and then how do I differentiate like a intelligent mob that doesn't want to die from one that is kind of mindless and will run off a cliff. And running off a cliff is a good example, right? So I'll give them their kind of generic wander ability, and then they'll have like a Boolean check in that particular function which says, hey, does this character care about checking for edges? And some of them won't, you know. Yeah, exactly. Some under the hood AI differences, like orcs and like orcs becoming braver when they're surrounded by other orcs. That would be a good one. Yeah, like attacking in groups. Again, Bad North is such a good reference for this stuff because it's full of it. Because you have like direct control over the entire units in Bad North, but how the well, the entire kind of regiments. But how the individuals within those regiments behave is slightly out of your control. And you kind of master the game by learning that through trial and error. Okay, guys. There's a lot of us now. So let's... none of these are ranged, so we might as well try and aggro one as far away as possible from the others and lead them away. Yeah, there we go. Hehehehe. In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside Emberfort. Then a couple of humans, they were up to no good, started trying to defend their neighborhood. I got in one little fight, and my mama got scared and said, go and conquer that human castle over there. Yeah, I'm enjoying the Dark Lord so far. The tutorial is very well crafted. It's taking a while to get to the bit where we're like doing the buildy side of an RTS rather than just the unit direction side. But I think that's not necessarily a bad idea because raise the dead inside the castle, because you know there'll be lots of people who don't have that history of playing all of the bigger old school RTSs. I think the height of RTS popularity sort of right at the turn of the millennium before like bigger MMOs started off and stuff like that. I think it was much more common for someone's experience with an RTS to mostly be playing the single player campaign. Not so much anymore. Walk into the light. This seems like a trick. The Dark Banner, the Ring of Necromancy, the Book of Apocrypha, the Summoning Rod, the Thing of Stuff, the Mysterious Doodad, the Deeply Evil MacGuffin, the What's-It Doodah. Okay, we're gonna do the Doom of the World. Let's do the Doom of the World. My favourite. I love dooming the world. I don't know about you. Microplastics. Airline pollution. These are a few of my favourite things. He will raise his dark tower and it will blot out the sun. Yeah, if people want me to narrate it, you know, Richard Ridings is quite expensive nowadays. I don't know if there's anyone watching that doesn't know this, but Richard Ridings, who did the original Dungeon Keeper voice, is also Daddy Pig. And funny thing, prior to this YouTube channel, the most successful thing I'd ever put on YouTube was an entire episode of Peppa Pig where I had cut the Dungeon Keeper voice to an episode of Peppa Pig. Loads of people have ripped it off since then, but I think mine was better because I chose good contexts for, I don't think it exists anymore. I think I deleted that YouTube channel. Yeah, I did the episode where Daddy Pig takes Peppa and George to work, and they're asking him what he does at work, and he's going, "The streets run with the blood of the slain." And then they're going, "Daddy, do you use a pen at work?" And he's going, "Knife." He just keeps telling them about how he uses a knife at work. So yeah, other people have recreated it, but I haven't. I think I had it on a YouTube channel that just had loads of trollish stuff, and then I took it down a few years ago. But I was probably feeling bad because I knew that loads of kids had watched my episode. The Darkest Dungeon narrator is dead, unfortunately. The Darkest Dungeon narrator, that has a great story behind it as well. Red Hook Studios, Wayne June, he died last year, I think. Yep. So Red Hook Studios, when they were working on Darkest Dungeon, they were listening to a bunch of like gothic audiobooks. And I remember hearing one of them talk in an interview, and he said that for ages they were saying, "Oh, we should get a voice like this for the announcer in the game." Yeah, that's a great idea. And it took them months and months and months to realize that they could just literally find that guy and hire that specific guy that they'd been listening to, like, read Edgar Allan Poe books and stuff. Yeah, I remember finding out that he'd passed because all of the Darkest Dungeon, like, fan groups on Facebook and stuff were holding memorials for him. Overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. He's got that classic, like, sort of Kelsey Grammer, not British American elocutioned made up voice that Kelsey Grammer and what's his face Vincent Price have, which is kind of like a half British made up British accent, and then there's certain words that are a tell. Like if you hear Vincent Price talk, he won't say can't, even though if he was like from Southeast England, he would say can't, but he'll still say can't, but the rest of the words will sound almost British. Oh, Hilton South. Let's stay away from there until we've got more orkies. Use my first bit of mana. In time, you will learn the tragic extent of my failings. To do the Darkest Dungeon one, you really have to like puff up your face a little. The tragic extent of my failings. Because he's supposed to sound grizzled as well. You know, someone who was distinguished once, but no longer is. In time, you will learn the tragic extent of my failings. They've got a church over there. That seems like a... We're going to just do a recce first. We're going to walk around the map and not attack a town until we find a weak one. Because we're evil like that. These have started to say stone on them, which suggests that we're going to start getting into the resource management bit of the game now. Okay, these guys are aggressive. Let's just do it. Let's do it. So remember, destroying the towns is going to be how we get our XP for leveling stuff up in our little bookie book. I need to stop using that. It's a Russell Brandism, but you are dead. Arise, don't mind if I do. I love the idea of a oh, they're going to attack the Dark Tower. Okay, cool. The center of power for the Dark Lord in all of the world. Untold waves of enemies will do all they can to bring it down, but so long as the Dark Tower still stands, the world will never be free and the Dark Lord will never be stopped. So I can imagine the kind of push-pull of the game structure from here on, because we're building our Dark Tower. We need to go out and take out the towns to get the insight to level up our powers, but there's going to be this kind of almost push your luck element of how long do you stay away from the tower because the enemies are going to be attacking it. Yeah. And I get, oh look, we're feeding resources into it. Ah, the hammer of hammering. The power to command your army as a workforce. Your orcs will gather resources from forests and mountains and will construct workshops and defenses at your behest. Okay, cool. What are you going to build for me, guys? Why don't you go over to the quarry? Okay, they don't all go. We're gathering resources until we've got 20, and then we're gonna... They're going to the tower. They're putting the stone in there. We're going to build mode. This is 20 wood. There's a lot of like inconsistent iconography here, but I think we can kind of work around it for now. The hammer of knock knock. The hammer of job done. You know what will make this game, you know, not to be rude about the art of this game, but if this game had the Loop Hero artist attached, can you imagine? I think that would be pretty sick. And then we make the characters on the map kind of even smaller and a little bit cutesy, and whenever we have a bigger illustration, it's that Loop Hero guy. But you know, if you can't afford the Loop Hero guy, I can do a bad impression of it. So good. And it does have that kind of like creepy retro dark fantasy feel. Dimitri Deceiver, that's their name, yeah. Do not smite me. Do not smite me. I am ordering you to stop attempting to smite me. Stop. 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 Stop smiting me. No. No. I will not be smoten. Stop it. Stop. Stop it. You are dead, but while the Dark Tower stands, death is not the end. They're all just lurking around there. They're waiting until they've got enough hero juice to attack. Go over here. Let's destroy North Harrow. It's time. We'll make a orc portal over there. Right, I need to use my insight and level up soon. Interesting. They were shooting my tower and stopping it from spawning. Build more quarries to acquire stone. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad we... Right. I was running away from those guys then. I thought... Well, I don't know why I thought my guys were bad guys for a second. Well, they are bad guys, but they were good guys. Lads, it's time to gather a resource. An attack is imminent. Rally everyone to defend. Okay. Okay. It feels like we're in the kind of true game now. Okay, we need to be ready to raise dead. We don't have enough mana to... Oh no. It's very easy for them to interrupt your spell casting. I feel like basically I'm missing an initial leg up onto the skill tree leveling up stuff, but when you come back like that, you come back with enough mana to cast a spell, so it's reasonably forgiving. There's a good kind of risk-reward thing of the way that the Raise Dead spell works is you kind of need to get in the thick of it to maximize how many units you're going to raise. But that makes it more likely that you're going to get the spell interrupted by an archer. So that there's some cool stuff going on there. Oh look, we've got our own necromancer. I don't know how that happened. Maybe they had some sort of mage and I raised them. Do I have any insight for the spell book? I don't yet, no. I thought I did, but... My enemies are assembling. Let's get out of here for a minute. Let's go and try and get the insight that we were going up here for before. Raise these guys. Are these necromancers? Well, we've got 2 necromancers now. That's cool. Oh, I think you need a slightly bigger invincibility window after getting hit as well, because I got hit, didn't really have any opportunity to get away after the first hit then. Maybe like a stronger knockback when you're getting shot at. I don't know. It's quite unforgiving once you look. When you're in this situation and you start getting hit, it's really kind of unforgiving. Hard to get out of. You are dead! Here we go. But I guess, you know, a strategy game should really be about avoiding getting into bad situations rather than how you get out of them. But I think that that's where the real-time part comes in, right? Can you micro your way out of a bad situation? Right, there's lots of human lads over there. Let's see if there's somewhere else we can go and kill some people. They've got a tower. The Dark Tower is lost. Gather 100 stone to rebuild. Over there, lads. I'm gonna stay over here. Like a good Dark Lord. We might have enough. Yeah, let's do another raise here. Yeah, you really start to feel the kind of crunch when you're trying to balance the keeping your Dark Lord away from the enemy while also maximizing how many undead you're going to raise. There's a really nice kind of tension between those. Works really well. Hello? Have you heard the good word of our Dark Lord? Who's that? Is that just a villager? Yeah, so I think a good strategy is to not get too greedy with the Raise Dead spell. If you're like hanging back like this and you see its highlight, so if you haven't noticed, that sort of like green brown highlight around the corpses is showing you the range of the Raise Dead spell. So if I go away, you can see it come on there. So that one and that one is in range. I think when you're actively fighting, you want to not get too greedy with it and actually just try and focus on just like doing 2 at a time and staying out of trouble. Right, we're going to rally everyone to defend. While we're there, we'll do a new quarry there. Right, they're coming from both sides, so... Oh, they're coming from everywhere. New orc portal up the top. Right. Standing on the other side of the orc portal so that I've got a little bit of a defense. Raising some dead in the middle of them. Yeah, once you start getting hit, you're really... I mean, I guess it's kind of the point that your main character is supposed to be somewhat vulnerable. But I do think you need a way of getting away. Maybe the arrows push you a little bit further, so they push you out of range. Maybe we need a slightly bigger invincibility window. Maybe we need to speed up a little bit after we get hit, almost like a little kind of passive ability. But maybe those things are in the skill tree. We just haven't really got to a point where I'm... Oh, Guardian Turret. A stone construction to watch over your evil empire. Intruders within its range will be targeted and annihilated. Maybe I'm not really got to the point yet where I've... Maybe there are some of these kind of like helper mechanics that I can unlock, but I'm not getting the insight XP quick enough to be able to get those things. Okay, guys, come near my scary turrets. Build turrets now. Can I do one straight away? Yeah, let's focus on getting some more damage output. Because although I should rebuild the tower, I think prioritizing turrets to start off with is probably a good idea. Okay. Does feel like the game does give you a decent... As hard as it is to get away when you're being attacked, the overall game does give you a decent chance of coming back. Because they destroy the tower and then they just sort of go and hang back and patrol the edge of your lands kind of thing. Okay. Okay, West Beck over there doesn't have a defense tower, so I'm gonna zoom right out, and this will be our first time sending an army without going with them. So we're into real kind of Sauron stuff now. My enemies coming in, don't have enough to build another tower. We're gonna bring these guys back. New orc portal up here. Orc Portal is the name of my new metal band. Hey guys, you can see Orc Portal tonight. I find them to be a little bit derivative, quite frankly. A little bit gimmicky. Right, spellbook. Let's level something up. We can get more zombies. We can increase the range of our turret. Faster orc summon seems good. More zombies. Okay. So we won't get our orc summon interrupted as easily. And more zombies is good because that's kind of made out of a finite resource almost. So having a bit more efficiency there is going to be good. Okay, we can build another tower now. And I think now would be a good time to send those guys over again. So new tower, new turret on the other side. Actually, this top of the map has got less stuff coming from it. So we're going to defend the quarry and where our tower goes. And maybe we'll get to 3 towers before we start worrying about rebuilding the Dark Tower. Which is maybe not what the game wants us to do, but it feels sensible in this situation we're currently in. It feels good to get to a point where we, you know, we can leave some folks harvesting and send the rest out. Let's raise some dead. Probably be cool to have some graveyards on the map, there where they're just like one use. Yeah, I think the characters gather the rocks, so I don't know if I can manually pick it up by walking into it. Probably. Let's go back over there. The enemies are assembling. Just gonna raise the last couple of zombombies over here. Way hey. So now I'm interested in whether the enemies come from every direction even though I've destroyed the towns, or do they spawn specifically where their towns are? Right. We can rebuild the tower now. There we go. Got our tower back. Right, go between our 2 turrets. That's it. Okay, cool. Well, if that's the case, I can go over here and get some more rock, and then we can build more turrets. Schlurp, schlurp, schlurp. And it looks like the attacks are coming from the direction of the towns. Let's zombify these guys. I will say, I feel like the way that the level is constructed means that the layout doesn't feel like it matters that much. Because if you think of like classic RTSs, the way that they made the levels varied was by having heights and like valleys and stuff. I think if you want to do this kind of Cult of the Lamb, you know, there's occasionally a 2D object that blocks you, but mostly it's just big and open. I think it would be good to have some rivers and some like bigger chasms and stuff, and maybe the game gets a bit more like that later on, but at the moment I'm really feeling that there's not really any kind of friction from the geography of the level coming at me. Right, we've got that already. You must defeat the Spider Queen to develop dominion over nature. That's cool. I can level up the turrets. I can do nothing else at the moment, so let's close the spell book. I don't know why I keep thinking tab will close the current menu, but it doesn't do anything. That's it. Look how many of those zombie paladins I've got now. That's great. These guys. Get those guys before we go home. Come on. Stop slacking. The villagers can't become combat zombies. Ah, you've broken me dark tower. You've broken me dark tower. What are you like? Got enough stone for those. Philosopher Tyrants. No, I haven't heard of that. New quarry over there, I guess. Anywhere else? Right. There's some other town of humans we haven't discovered yet. Some of these guys are going green. I think your undead have a limited lifespan. I think that's what's happening there. Didn't realize that. Oh. Thinking of like kind of tropey characters that you could have in a game like this, but use them in a slightly different mechanical way because of the nature of the game. Like if the humans had priests, they could like bless their dead so that they can't be turned into zombies and stuff like that. I think I watched a is there a pointy hat video where he kind of goes through all of the Eberron towns? I think it was Eberron. Seems like a cool setting. I think that might be the last level of the demo, which is a shame because I was just getting into the actual base building bit.
With the Dark Tower established, the third age of evil will begin. Every 300 years we will emerge, and all the realms of men shall be as ash. Every 300 years the knife will be sharper, the cut will be deeper. As the world suffers, we will grow stronger, and so the doom of the world is written. An endless cycle of torment and destruction, from which there is no escape. As it is written, so it shall be.
Right. I really like it. I do like it. My issue is I still have unanswered questions after that. And I understand that this is like a proof of concept prototype, so this isn't a Steam demo per se. And I think these questions would be what concerns, like these would be more concerning if this was a Steam demo and it was like, hey, this is the game by the full version. But at this stage, I still find them a little bit concerning, and that is, we played through the tutorial. It gradually built up from just being like a tactical control the units, you know, just the micro management part of an RTS, And then we got to base building and tower defense. And that was cool. But what the game hasn't really shown me is any evidence of what the approach is going to be to make that interesting for any longer than this. Because I was really into that in that final level. The dynamic of like come back and defend, go out and attack, da-da-da-da-da-da. But the game hasn't shown me what is kind of, I'm trying to think of a not bad way of saying it. What is the content strategy for making lots of variation of that thing? And maybe a lot of the content strategy is in the tech tree. We didn't really get to see much of the tech tree. Maybe the content strategy is in like having different kingdoms of humans that have different stuff. Like, you know, there's a kingdom where they train dragons, or there's a kingdom where they ride horses or whatever. Oh yeah, we did see a dungeon as well, didn't we? But I guess what they were trying to do is just show us like a little slice of every single part of the game, which is why we did go into a dungeon at one point. But I don't know, I think I would have liked one more big level. So for me, the jury is out on this game until I get to play one more big level of it. That's like, that's got all of the parts in. Because the way that the dungeon was presented earlier in the game, it was really just a zoomed in version of the same combat system and a way of like varying the experience for a moment while we picked up a relic. But it wasn't actually a different thing. There weren't traps. There was nothing in the dungeon that like really differentiated it from doing overworld combat. It was just like, yeah, here it is. We've got a dungeon. Definitely interested to play this again. So you can even tell that I mean, it feels like the team is not super confident in the art, and one of the reasons you can tell that is because on all the screenshots it's zoomed all the way out, right? Because it looks better. It looks like a Tolkien illustration map when it's zoomed out. When we zoom in, it starts to show that it's pixel art, and I think maybe the assets for this game should be drawn 4 times larger and not be pixel art. And I actually had. There was a bunch of this kind of art style in Canva, and a long time ago when my partner and I, Ibby and I, were doing, we did a short run of podcasts about like games and linguistics, and I made a cover for it that had all of these like drawn map bits on it. And I'm pretty sure the Canva library has a load of those. So if I was prototyping a game and I wanted it to look like those kind of hand-drawn medieval maps, I would be looking at image libraries like that. Because I don't think the pixel art is really serving the game at the moment. And there's so many places where you can get those kind of art assets. They just might not ever be packaged as like video game art assets, if that makes sense. And the more, I think the more it looks like one of Tolkien's actual maps, the more it's gonna kind of feel powerful. But in order to do that, you need quite a lot of variations on things like the mountains and stuff, because as soon as it's like a repetition of the same one, it loses that hand-drawn feel. So yeah, I think they're aware of that, because the Steam page is all zoomed out because it looks better that way. But it is very early days for this game, so there might be other ideas around that in the works. I do think thinking about how the AI and the pathing interacts with the forests will be helpful as well. Because if they're going to mainly block you, I would have them as just big blobs. But if we're going to have them spaced out as individual trees, then I think having some tactical advantage to like slowly going through them would be good as well. It's cool. I like the idea of the art. I think the execution is not quite there yet, but it is a prototype that we played. I'm not sure that I'm convinced about the sort of the potential of it feeling like there's enough tactical diversity. So I think one of the things, if you think about how a big tower defense game works, is there's quite a lot of Kingdom Rush. The actual levels themselves are very, very constrained, and that makes them feel very different because each level is a different kind of placement puzzle. And what I just saw in Arise Dark Lord was kind of like the level design, unless we play a level like those kind of ones we saw on the Steam page with the islands, unless we play a level that has that kind of layout where there's like really clear choke points, and maybe we start getting humans on griffins that can come and fly over the sea and attack us that way and stuff like that. It's really hard at this stage of the project to see how the levels would be differentiated in a way that makes it interesting to kind of play different levels. Yeah, I like it. I think there are just some very like big design questions that are left unanswered by the prototype we just played. But it's good. And I like the overall kind of theming. They haven't tried to do anything particularly fancy. It is just Sauron Simulator. Like I said, it's not kind of generic modern day post Tolkien fantasy. It feels much more like a kind of 70s, 80s dark sword and sorcery thing, which I think serves it very well. So I like the overall theming, the fantasy, the creative direction of this. I think approaching it as pixel art rather than like I think having the humans look like little bower tapestry guys would be great. If they look like little illustrations from a bower tapestry and they little hopped around like that, and maybe if you zoomed in far enough you could hear them going "Ooh, ooh, ooh," when they fight. It might make it a bit goofy, but it's already a little bit goofy. Yeah. So yeah, there's a map with islands. I feel like if the prototype demo thing had had this on it, I would have really gotten a feel for what a different level feels like. But we only actually played the kind of proper game with the base building element in that one very simple map with the 4 towns dotted around it. That looks like it's got some sort of dragon on it. Fell Beast Rider. Yeah, this is the weird pterodactyl that's actually in Lord of the Rings. Leech spell, summon imps. So here you can see it looks like it's meant to be structured so that a single map you kind of start the spellbook tech tree from scratch, because on this map we have leech and summon orcs and we don't have raise dead, and on this map we don't have raise dead and we have, so maybe it's kind of structured in such a way that every time you start a new map you're like doing a new set of engine building of building the tech tree up, which I quite like. And it's a sensible route to go down, because every time you have like a big metagame upgrade tech tree, those kind of the consequences of building your tech tree a certain way last for a long time. And we know that that is not necessarily a bad thing, but hard to balance. And it puts less strategic players at a disadvantage because they don't analyze the whole thing and they pick things based on theme. And that's why things like, MMOs have had, re-roll mechanics for a long time where you can buy back all your XP points and respec, because those types of choices have a very long tail in terms of the consequences of like choosing badly. So if what we're saying is that all of the upgrading in this game happens within a single session of like dominating one map, and then when you go to the next map you have to do it all again, that's maybe a better structure for this game, because it encourages you to like experiment with different builds. I'm not sure that that's exactly how it works, but looking through these screenshots and seeing that the player has a different set of abilities in each one does kind of suggest that. And to be fair, there's probably an explanation of that on this very page. Corrupt the peaceful forests and beautiful mountains of the realm. Extract resources to equip your army. Build vast, impenetrable evil forces. Fortify your dark tower against human counterattack with evil turrets, siege weapons, barricades, and cursed traps. Upgrade your spellbook. Every sacked human city or fortress gains more insight. I quite like the fact that the insight is gained from sacking the cities as well, because it makes the trade-off for the risk of going and attacking versus just kind of turtling where you are feel very meaningful. It's not just, hey, you need to go and attack these things to finish the map. It's like, if you want to be able to like build cooler stuff, you need to go and you need to play aggressively. And I think that's a good idea in a game where you're trying to do an RTS for a single player game and you want to make the PvE element. A tower defense, the PvE element is just everyone comes to you, you deal with that. If you've got a game where you're dealing with that and you're supposed to go and attack, you need some way of incentivizing the going and attacking, and having that directly linked to like, it's basically the only way you can get more powerful in a long-term way, right? You can get more powerful by summoning undead from the people that attack you, but those can die and they can also just run out. So if you summon loads of undead from the defenders who you defeated, and you just sit there and use them as defenders, you're actually wasting their potential, because they eventually do that little green flash and then die organically. So there's a interesting series of incentives here to like try and get the player to kind of risk like rush attacking the enemy and using that window of time before they get attacked to get back. I think all of that's very strong. I just would need to see a little bit more variety in how it's executed to really feel like the game is going in the right direction. But it's Introversion, they know what they're doing, and I think they don't necessarily need to prove that. But if this, I'm trying to like be agnostic to the fact that I know that this is an established studio, and just be like, if this was anyone else's game, what has the prototype proven, and what has the prototype got to prove? And it's in a good place now, because I think a lot of the things that it does need to prove are like known quantities. Like, how do you get the variety into the game? Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for joining today. I'm just going to check what we're doing later on in the week. I think we've got 3 streams this week, because I slotted this one in at the last minute. Very rare for me to get emailed about a game that's like something I want to play. Yeah, so later on in the week, we are going to do, tomorrow, we're going to check out Project Restart and Sonar Mining Co. Sonar Mining Co. was one of the games from Collab Jam a month or 2 ago. So digging holes, but it is in space. We're doing some space mining. And then later on in the week, we're going to be doing a couple of different games about chance or gambling. How to Dice for the Deck God. I think we'll check out Cabbage's game Deck Dice at the same time. You may know Cabbage from One More Run. Very active member of our Discord as well. And a game called Deptition. So basically lots of games to do with luck and chance and gambling. And then next week, we're doing the prototype amnesty. So everyone from the Patreon community who sent me a prototype and thinks like, oh, I shouldn't send this in, it's not ready, blah, blah, blah. Put them all together, check them out in one go, so people don't feel like loads of pressure to always send something really polished. So if that's you, if you're sending a game in from the Patreon community on the private Discord, and you want to submit a game and you think, oh, it's too early, just mark it that way. Say, this is a prototype, you maybe only play it for 10 minutes or whatever, but still send it in, And if you're wanting to send a game in and you're not part of the Discord community, you can do that over on indiegameclinic.com. There is a link here. So it says, if you've got an unfinished game and you'd like to see it on the weekly Indies Under the Knife stream, please submit it here. It says weekly. It's often more than weekly. I just only commit to weekly, because then if I have a really busy week, I can just do one. Please submit it here. There's a form that comes up and it tells you all about what you're submitting your game to. And this is why I usually don't play games that are sent to me by email. I did it today because it was an introversion game. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to I want to jump on that back. I want to get in on the ground floor on that one. But mostly we're looking at work in progress games that people are sending in. And the reason I require people to kind of jump through the hoop of filling in this form is so that I know that you understand what the channel is, and you're not sending me a game looking for positive coverage. You're not sending a game thinking I'm going to like sing its praises. You're sending a game with the understanding that we're going to use it for a little kind of game design workshop and like think through things we think are good and bad about it. And that's basically the premise of this channel. So a lot of the games that I show now, I would say sort of 60-70% come from our patrons, because that is those are the people that allow this channel to exist. But I do pick games sent in from this form as well, just at a much slower rate. So I can probably show you that. I just need to make sure that I've hidden the bits that have the nuclear launch codes on. Yeah, that's roughly. This is the list of games that have come in from the public form. There's like 300 things in the waiting list. So what I do on this one is I go through every so often. I put little tags on things to like indicate ones that I think are personally interesting. I also put a tag on things if the developer has sent a message explaining why they sent it in, right? And the reason for that is that shows that the person actually kind of watches the channel, understands what it is, and they know why they're sending something in. I often receive games where it just seems like they don't really understand what the channel is about. So I do tend to prioritize those ones where it seems like it's kind of actually a viewer, because that means that the developer is more likely to actually need what we do on this channel and find what we talk about helpful and useful and make use of it. Someone asked me the other day, do you ever go back and look at previous games, or like do a video on games you've looked at before and see how they improved and stuff? And I told them I would only do that if people actually reached out to me and said, hey, I've released my game and I did these things and blah, blah, blah. Most of the time when I've actively gone and sought out games that we've streamed before and seen if they've improved, a lot of the time I find games that have either been abandoned or games that have been launched that still have the core problems I talked about in the video or in the stream. So I don't actively do that anymore because it's quite depressing. You think, I don't know. It's just not a rewarding thing to actively seek out. So if you're watching and you have previously sent something in, and you have you feel like you've improved it, and you've launched it and everything, and you feel like it was helpful to do this, do get in touch. But I don't actively go and look up previous games that have been on the stream. It's different for folks who are in the Discord and who are patrons, because I see you kind of posting about your games all the time. But people that send their games in from the form, I don't like actively look them up and follow the development unless it was something that already felt very promising and something I would have been organically excited about myself, and would have maybe followed just from seeing the dev on social media and liking the game. But a lot of the time I find, it's just depressing because you see folks that have just not really taken on board some like really vital issues that their game had. So I'm just seeing what people are saying in the chat. What I take, pixel graphics are not helping you here. Yes, well, one could argue it's not the pixel graphics that help, but the art design. Yeah, I guess so. The Cake is a Lie said, what do you think about DMing as game design practice? I think DMing is very good game design practice. I'm actually planning a video that's not about TTRPGs and DMing, but it's about what you can learn from board games. But it's a similar thing. So I'm currently running a campaign of Delta Green, which is like it's like Lovecraftian X-Files. It's a modern setting for like cosmic horror where people are part of some sort of agency that deals with that kind of stuff. Previously run a few D&D things. I think there are lots of things you get from DMing that are very helpful for game design practice. One is helping you separate systems and content, right? Because when you DM, you're using rules that already exist, and then you're making up the content. Usually, right? Other people will do things different ways. They might get the content of the quests and stuff from a book and then homebrew a bunch of the rules, but it helps you to understand how these things are different and how they kind of come into conversation with each other. And the example of what that would be in video games is, right, you make a game and then you have to design levels for it, and you have to design all these different enemies, right? So you've got the content and the core systems, and there is some back and forth between those things. Very rare is it that we're going to get a situation like we're making Warcraft 3 and we build a level editor and then we make everything in the level editor and we make the entire game and then we make all the content for the game. It's not usually going to happen. There's like a back and forth between those things. And I think it does introduce you to that. I think one of the things that DMing has always helped me understand with video games is that what appears to be happening in the engine isn't as important as what the player thinks is happening, which is very similar to this term I learned from the RimWorld game, the RimWorld dev. He talks about it in his book. There's also this very good article on it's on his website, but it was on gamedeveloper.com as well. So apophenia is the human tendency to find patterns and meaning where they aren't, because we have like pattern matching brains. So the examples, and you can see lots of it in RimWorld, right, where there is a simulation happening, characters are interacting, but the player can like infer deeper relationships in what's happening in the game than what's actually there. And this kind of in tabletop role-playing games, you learn a lot about how, okay, we've got a system here and there are some rules and we're rolling dice and we have stats and all this, but the DM is like improvising a lot of the time. And I'm a very loosey-goosey DM. I work out a few things that I want to happen, usually based on what I think would be a cool moment or a cool image. And then I look at the players and I work out what they find interesting and exciting. I look at their player characters and I try and make sure that I come to every session with an idea in my head of like some sort of moment for each of them to shine. And then I also look at what their characters are bad at. Same with D&D. If they've got no healer in their party, okay, let's create some issue around that. Let's like have characters that not just like as a combat mechanic. Let's find a character in the environment that needs healing and they've got no healer. So now they've got a problem that stems specifically from their character's weaknesses. But you kind of collect these little bits of ideas and then you improvise with them at the table. And I know that's not how everyone GMs, but it's very much how I GM. And it helps you to understand when you see that the players kind of have this illusion that you've planned more than you have. And they think, oh, how did you put all that together? It's like, well, I didn't. It's like, it's the same with improvising in music. Like, there's a bunch of theory behind musical improvisation, which is basically saying you're not really improvising. What's happening is you've got 100 guitar licks stuck in your head. And as you play the music and you transition from this type of chord to this type of chord, you have a intuitive sense from practice of what improvisational lick will fit in that gap. And it's the same sort of thing. So you develop this kind of intuition from improvising with a set of parts, and then that gives the impression that something is really organized when actually it's not. And we can do that in video games too. And I think some of the qualities that I really appreciate in video games, like the level of kind of emergent stuff happening in things like Noita. When I say I like roguelikes, it's not necessarily I like procedural level generators. For me, the procedural level generator needs to have interesting interactions baked into it that lead to like interesting or funny things happening. So something like Noita is a very good example of that. But I like ImSims as well. They don't have procedural, they're not roguelikes, they don't have procedural levels, but they have a lot of emergence of how things in the game world can interact, right? In Deus Ex, I can level up my strength so I can pick up a fridge, and then I can go into someone's apartment and pick up a fridge and take it and throw it off the roof and squish someone, stuff like that. That's what I like in games, is when they have that kind of like simulation, but simulation to actually produce kind of moments that are fun rather than to like be realistic or whatever. Um, The Cake is a Lie said in one of your older videos, you talked about publishing a narrative course that you taught. Any update on that? I mean, I feel like the most important bits are already on the channel. So the course you're talking about was the year 2 course I developed when I was at Christchurch, which was like an introduction to narrative design. And the way that worked was we did like 6 theory lectures, and then we did a practical thing, which was like creating the basic, like one really good scene from a visual novel with some dialogue choices in. I didn't make them make the whole game. It was like, just make one really good scene with decent characterization, an intriguing introduction to a world, and some interesting decisions. And part of the reason for that was in the second year of the course, they were kind of the first year of a course, you want everyone to try everything, right? Because you're getting students come in who have never done anything before, so they can't really specialize yet. They don't really know what they're good at. And often what you end up being passionate about aligns very strongly with what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what you can bear to do over and over again. So first year, very broad, generalist, everyone tries everything. Second year, a little bit more specialist, you know, the narrative design module doesn't have everyone in it. And then in the third year, you're going to be like spending most of the time making your final major project, which is where you become hyper specialist. So we didn't make them make a whole visual novel in that year 2 module, because the idea was if they wanted to come back to that later, they could do the whole thing later on. But in terms of the theory stuff that we already published from that, Christchurch in Canterbury. I know there's a Christchurch in Oz in Oz or New Zealand, but no, there's a Canterbury Christchurch University in Canterbury in Kent. So some of these were like reworked lectures from
we've got
that.
The, you know, in Fallout, we've got the,
which is basically this one on environmental storytelling, this one on world building, lore and history, this one writing dialogue for games. Those are pretty much bits that are like recreations of the stuff I used to teach from, and there may be longer versions that are still saved as lives. But I edited them down and took a lot of the umming and ahhing out of them. So it'd be this one. I'm just putting a post the links in the chat. So the one about environmental storytelling, which hopefully goes a little bit deeper than, you know, zombie writes on wall with blood or whatever. Yeah, the environmental storytelling one, the one about world building, lore, history, coming up with fictional worlds, the one about writing dialogue. I think those are it. I don't think I did any more, because that kind of covered most of the stuff. A game for edgelord atheists. What a thumbnail. So yeah. It's not something I feel like I'm a super expert on. But I'm also just very picky about narrative in games. And I prefer games that do story in an interesting way that's not just lots of dialogue trees, I guess. And that's kind of limits it to games that are harder to make. Right, I'm going to be off then. Thanks for joining today. Thanks for arising with the Dark Lord. May the Dark Lord bless your day. And may you be bestowed with many orcs and undead minions. May they do your chores for you. May they fold your laundry. And may you conquer the world.